want to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. We have a fairly full agenda, so we're going to move quickly through some of it and obviously take time where we need to take time. So do we have any announcements? I know Cecilia has an announcement.
Sure. Just wanted to share that March is Disability Awareness Month, and the City of Fishers has been very active in providing a month-long celebration and awareness campaign. This year's theme is Connected Through Language, and we're trying to build awareness about deaf and hard of hearing residents that live in our community and how we can better support them and understand some of the challenges that they're facing. I encourage you to come at the kickoff to March Disability Awareness Month, March 3rd. It's Monday at 8:30 here in this building. We're going to have a presentation and awards, and we're going to be kicking everything off. So I want to let everybody know. Thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. Any other announcements? Okay, no proclamations. We'll move on to the presentations. We have a Fire Department for IU Health presentation.
Try to see everybody all at once. It's going to be really hard. Good evening, everyone. My name is Curtis McKissick. I serve as the EMS liaison for the Indiana University Health Metro Region. With me tonight, I have members of our executive leadership and our senior leadership team from IU Health Saxony. It is with our great honor and immense pride that we stand before you tonight to present the IU Health Distinguished Service Awards. Get my words straight. This award is not just a piece of recognition. It signifies the extraordinary dedication and exceptional service that the men and women who serve the Fishers Fire Department display each and every day. Today, we gather to celebrate not only the dedication of the crews, but also the spirit of the community and resilience that binds us all together. As we are here to recognize just one specific incident, it illustrates the profound impact and quick thinking, courageous actions in a moment of crisis. There are many more stories like this to be told. We just don't have enough time with us today. This cardiac arrest event that took place in October of 2024 is to think the swift response of bystanders performing CPR and the dedicated efforts of our EMS and fire crews. There was an individual given a second chance of life due to this. Imagine with me for a moment of fear, uncertainty that hangs in the air when a loved one suddenly collapses. Heartbeats quicken, panic sets in, and time feels like it absolutely stands still. Yet in these moments of desperation, we witness things of incredible power of human connection at those times. Bystanders, Fishers Fire Department stepped forward when every second counted in this moment. They did it without hesitation to act. They did it not turn away a single second. Today, we honor the first responders who arrived on the scene with unwavering resolve and dedication. Their training, bravery, commitment to saving lives is just a testament of the values the community holds dear. They embody the spirit, service, understanding of each life is precious. In every emergency call, there is a story waiting to unfold. It's a family member holding on for a miracle, a friend praying for a safe return, and each time the crews to return safely to their homes. They bring them with the knowledge that they are not just responding to a situation, they are responding to the very fabric within our community. As we present these Distinguished Service Awards today, let us remember that the recognition is not merely for the individuals we honor, but for the entire community that rallies behind them. It is a celebration of the countless lives touched by their service and the positive outcomes that arise from teamwork, training, and the unyielding spirit that they hold every day. In closing, thank you for your service and unwavering commitment to the community. Congratulations on this well-deserved recognition, and we'll bring up members of the Hamilton County Emergency Dispatch Team, our Fishers Fire Department. Call taker for the day on this emergency was Lauren Merrick. Our EDO for the fire department, ED 309, Lieutenant Chad Moore. Members of Engine 392, Captain Will Ortiz. Firefighter Amy Flowers, who is under the weather tonight and cannot be here. Firefighter John Burt. And the crew from Medic 397, Firefighter Paramedic Matthew Speaks. And then Firefighter Clay Bedell. Thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations to all. We will now move to the second item, the Fishers Junior High We Are the People State Champions.
And we have a student who wanted to speak briefly.
Sure.
We want to thank you so much for acknowledging us for our accomplishments between our 6 units. Unit 1 focuses on how the founders got their ideas. Unit 2 focuses on the British colonial rule through the Articles of Confederation. Unit 3 focuses on what happened at the Philadelphia Convention. Unit 4 excuse me, focuses on how the Constitution was used to establish our government. Unit 5 is about how the Constitution protects our basic rights. And in my unit, Unit 6, we focus on the responsibilities of citizens. This class has done so much for all of us in so many different ways. It has helped us with learning our rights and the Constitution and its role in our government today. We've gone to regionals and then advanced to state, and now we are preparing for nationals to compete with students all over the country. We also want to thank our teachers, Mr. Surgeon and Ms. Butts, for giving us confidence through good times and bad, and not only teaching us so much about the government, but teaching us valuable life lessons along the way. Thank you all for everything.
While they're doing that, if you want to share, teachers, if you want to share the program just real briefly and like your next steps, I know they just are state champions, and what they're doing next while they're. Yeah, you just right there at the podium, right there. Just part the Red Sea there, and it's right there.
There you go.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
You're used to teaching, come on.
Right. Okay, so the next steps, as you mentioned, in order to go to state, we had to win regionals or qualify for regionals, which was the sharing of reading 2 papers and answering questions about those. And we won regionals this year, moved on to state. Indiana, I will say, I could think it is the best We the People state in the country. We're heavily supported by the Indiana Bar Foundation and the state legislature. They fund We the People, so it does not cost us anything. They supply the curriculum for us for it, and we were fortunate enough to win state. This is actually the 9th year in a row that Fishers Junior High has won the state competition. Going forward, we will compete at nationals, as Stella said. This involves writing 2 brand-new papers. We got questions about a month ago. The questions are unique every year, and so the students are now composing and working on those papers, and then we'll continue to work on follow-up. Nationals is virtual at the junior high level, so we will compete at the end of April on a Friday and a Saturday against teams from all over the country. We have not been given a list of the total teams yet. Normally, it's around 14 teams from around the country, and hopefully we will have success, but the next couple of months is working on those papers. And they are ready. It is by far, I think, one of the greatest programs that we do in our school.
And if you want to learn anything, as I did, was it Thursday or Friday, just go into their class and have them fire questions at you, the students, and then you'll go home weeping because you will have, because they know so much more. So no, thank you very much.
Congratulations. Yeah, this is one of those things, just a testimony to really the kind of individuals we have and the school that we have and everything that you guys do. It kind of warms my heart to see you guys taking interest in this. It really does. With all the nonsense that goes out in the world, to see you guys putting its best effort in year after year after year, it's just a terrific deal. So thank you guys very much.
Good job, guys.
Okay, moving on. I believe Chief Gephardt, we have 13 officers we're swearing in tonight.
This represents our 2024 hiring, 13 officers, 12 are here, one couldn't make it tonight. It also represents our school safety officers, our new program that we're running to put officers in the schools as well. They're here as well, and they're going to swear in before you tonight. You guys ready? Raise your right hand. I state your name. I do solemnly swear. That I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America. That I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution and laws of the State of Indiana. The Constitution and laws of the State of Indiana. The laws and ordinances of the City of Fishers, Indiana. The laws and ordinances of the City of Fishers, Indiana. The rules and regulations of the Fishers Police Department. The rules and regulations of the Fishers Police Department. And the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics. And the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office. As a police officer to the best of my ability. As a police officer to the best of my abilities. Congratulations.
Thank you all. And then I've got an add-on for our mayor. Scott would like to make an announcement.
Thank you, Council President Peterson. As you all are aware, that Eric Pethel, our current Public Works Director, passed away last Sunday, and we mourn for his loss. He's been an avid and committed public servant to the City of Fishers over the last 34 years, and he will be missed by all within the department, but the broader organization in the community. Eric notified us about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that he had an intention of retiring in March. And so the wheels have been in motion to identify who his replacement would be. And tonight, I am excited to introduce you to the new Public Works Director for the City of Fishers. That is Jonathan Valenta. Jonathan Valenta has been with the City of Fishers for a number of years, well over 2 decades now. And one of the great stories about Jonathan that also parallels a little bit of Eric's story is he started at the lower ranks of the Public Works Department, so he has a commonality, a shared experience with the men and women that serve us each and every day in the Public Works Department. And he has worked his way up through hard work and determination and really gotten a breadth of different experiences from what you would think of as traditional streets and public works, moving over to the wastewater side and learning that from Rick Farnham, if you remember him as our assistant director or director of water quality. And so he is well versed in public works. He has a real passion about not only the work in this community, but the people that work alongside him. And so tonight, I am excited to introduce you to your new Public Works Director, Jonathan Valenta. Jonathan?
Thank you, everyone. Jonathan Valenta, Director of Public Works.
I'm here today, actually, to celebrate a 25-year service award for Mr. Ron Sawyer, who's seated right there. You can sit. You're all right. I'll call you. Ron is our superintendent and chief operator at our wastewater treatment plant. So he's responsible for the day-to-day business there and for all the processes. Over the years, I've gotten to know Ron very well. And through those years, his leadership is unparalleled. He leads by example, and he is well respected by not only the organization, but also by his peers as well in the industry. Three things, though, I do find admirable about Ron the most is his selflessness, his dedication, and his work ethic. I can guarantee all of you, no one will work harder than Ron Sawyer, okay? And I do have a brief story, if we have quick time for this, for Ron. He doesn't know what I'm about to say either, so. It was one of the coldest days in the year. It sounds like an old tale, right? You know, but one of the coldest days in the year, had an operator who rushed into my office, okay, saying, Ron needs help. Oh my goodness, right? So I say, what's going on? The only thing the operator can say is sludge is spraying everywhere, okay? And that's exactly what you think it is, right? Okay? In simplest terms, that would be everything that we're removing from the waste stream, okay? That goes to a 600,000-gallon tank that we have. And if any of you have done the tour, one, I encourage you to do it, and two, it's a big blue tank. Next to that is a pump house, okay, that has pumps, pipe, and then that transfers that sludge. So I hear sludge spraying everywhere for Ron. I go racing down. I also knew that we had a contractor that was working in that pump house that morning, working on the pumps and the pipes, okay? I get down, race down. The first thing I see is sludge spraying against the doors and the windows, okay, and steam rolling out. This is not an everyday occurrence, okay? I then catch out of the corner of my eye the contractor, covered head to toe, dripping an absolute shock on his face. I rush out, and what happened, right? Again, long story short, they failed to isolate the pipe that had the sludge flow, removed an inspection plate, and by doing so, now we have a geyser, okay? And remind, 600,000 gallons in the tank, and this is a Monday when it's full, okay? In that brief period of time, I then realized Ron is nowhere to be seen. Where's Ron? And in unison, everyone says, he's in the building, okay, where all that sludge is spraying and everything. I open that door to see Ron Sawyer securing the plate that came off, fighting the flow, dripping head to toe, and everything you can imagine. Off the eyebrows, eyelashes, okay? Securing that plate in place. And he didn't hesitate for a second to do so. Selfless dedication, it was amazing. So that is a short story that exemplifies Ron Sawyer.
Ron? Congratulations, John, on being the new Public Works Director, and also thank you to Ron. 25 years, that's great stuff, so appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. John, any Finance Committee report?
Yes, thank you, Pete. The Budget Finance Committee met last week. We talked, recommend for approval item 8, item 9 on the agenda. Also, we talked about the state of our TIFs right now, and that was about it.
Thank you, John. Department reports, the Health Department report is online for anybody who wishes to care to see it. Moving on to the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
John makes a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Tiffany. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. Moving on to the regular agenda, business financial, item number 8.
All right, and number 8 is the Andretti project, correct? Is that That's you guys, okay.
That's what it says on my
Okay, just
list
making
right
sure.
here.
All right, the item before you is a resolution essentially capturing the personal property related to the Andretti project per the terms of the project agreement. So this is similar to what we do for real property in the TIF areas. We have not done a personal property one in a while, and to do a personal property call out, you have to specifically name the personal property and who is the benefit, and excuse me, and who the entity with the personal property. So that's what this resolution before you does. As we talked about in Finance Committee, this is just for the personal property piece of it. And the actual personal property is about $20 million. It goes in two phases, 16 million and 4 million. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Motion by Todd, second by John. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item 9.
All right, this item before you is an amendment to the Oleo and I-69 EDA to become part of the Fishers I-69 EDA. So these are terms common as we discussed in TIF. And so an economic development area is an area with a plan to increase employment opportunities, attract new businesses, or retain and expand business. So that is the EDA acronym that you see. And what this is doing is moving what was the TIF associated with the Clarion area into a area where we can use that broader now that that debt has expired on the Clarion area.
Any
Happy
questions?
to answer any questions.
Motion by John, second by Tiffany. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 10, request to approve amended, restated project agreement, Union and Crossing. Megan.
For the record, Megan Baumgartner, Director of Community and Economic Development. The Union and Crossing Agreement, this is an amended and restated. If you took a look at that document and remember this from 2023, these are really, really long agreements. And so instead of us having multiple versions of documents, we're now, and you should probably expect to see, instead of a first amendment to a project agreement, we're doing these amended and restated. So similar to our PUDs with Ross, we only have one document that we're tracking, so that's where you'll start seeing these amended and restated. So this is essentially an amendment to the project agreement. The only terms that are updated on this are just related to how they're structuring their TIF bonds. So previously they had certain names associated with different types of junior and senior subordinate bonds. Now they've expanded those terms slightly to have Union, senior and junior, and Crossing, senior and junior. Nothing changes in terms of the commitments to the city. Closing date is still the same for the end of this year. And we're happy that that they anticipate breaking ground probably in the next couple of months for the Union project, which is immediately south of the yard at Fishers District. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Megan? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion approved. Motion by John.
Second.
Second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thanks, Megan. Moving on to number 11, request to approve an amendment to Chapter 51 of the Fisher City Code of Ordinances.
Good evening, Council. Lindsay Bennett, Corporation Counsel. I'm here for the second and final reading of the sewer use ordinance update. As a reminder, no changes have been made to the rates, but we did clarify a couple of the rates for the duplexes, townhomes, and multifamily, and also how the EDUs will be applied moving forward. So I did publish for a public hearing just to make sure, out of an abundance of caution, that if anyone had any questions, that everything was done pursuant to a public hearing. But again, no changes to those rates have been made. Jeremy Schmidt was here on first reading and went over a lot of those changes. However, since first reading, the state has actually requested a couple of changes to our pretreatment standards, as well as our enforcement and penalty and fines. And so there are a couple of additional changes that were requested by the state. I can go in depth, but just high level. They're pretty run-of-the-mill, just allowing the city to develop and enforce pretreatment limits, gives the city authority to accept or reject discharges, requires compliance with our ordinances by indirect dischargers, gives us the ability to enforce our ordinances in court, and then also allows us to fine not more than $2,500 per day per violation for a first violation, and not more than $7,500 per day per violation for subsequent violations. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Lindsay? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this topic, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes in which to speak.
Hi, good evening. My name is Josh User. My address is 12863 Shakespeare Way. Just wanted to thank the city for including in the EDU chart a provision for swimming pools. That will certainly help with our neighborhood sewer costs that went up after the city took over for HSE. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion by Todd, second by John. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item 12. Back to Lindsay.
All right, this is a request to approve creation and addition of section 35.60 to the City of Fishers Code of Ordinances. Again, Lindsay Bennett, Corporation Counsel for the city. The ordinance before you creates and adds to the Code of Ordinances a section dealing with commercial use of public records. As you probably know, the city receives several hundred public records requests each year, and each request requires significant time and resources spent by city staff to respond to those requests. Indiana Code recognizes that the city's time, effort, and resources should not be used to further a third party's commercial interests. And so there is language in the Indiana Code that allows a city to enact a prohibition against the use of public records for commercial purposes. And that would include to sell, advertise, or solicit the purchase of merchandise, goods, or services, or sell, loan, give away, or otherwise deliver the information obtained to any person for those purposes. So this ordinance is simply that prohibition so that we can first let the requester know that any of the documents requested cannot be used for commercial use, and then if they do use it for commercial use, that they could be denied further requests. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Lindsay? And since this is a first reading, all I need is a motion for first reading. Okay, John gave it a first reading. Thanks, Lindsay. Item 14.
All right.
Well, 13, sorry, I jumped ahead. No, we did 13, didn't we? No. Nope, sorry, I'm 13. Getting ahead.
Okay, so this is the request to approve an amendment to section 35.30, the fee schedule. This is just an annual update to the video law enforcement recording fees, and it includes the cost of labor to provide law enforcement recordings, to retrieve the data, to redact, and if necessary, to have attorney review. The new fee is 62 cents per minute, up to $150 for for police department staff, and then 92 cents per minute, up to $150 for attorney review. There's also an additional fee for Parks and Recs that adds a fee for lifeguards in the amount of $19 an hour for each lifeguard that may be needed for special events out at Geist Waterfront Park. Pretty simple, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Lindsay? Do I have a motion for first reading? First reading by Todd. Moving on to item 14.
Thank you.
Jordan.
Hi. Let me pull this up real quick. All right.
And so let me point this out before Jordan gets going. This is just a first reading.
Correct.
So we're not going to have any public comment here. You can obviously make public comment at the end. But as it relates to this item, this is the first time the council has really got to digest this. So my suggestion is as we move into the next meeting, if you have public comment and want to make it, next meeting, I think it's going on the next meeting agenda. Is that right, Scott and Chris? Is that our intention?
That's the intent,
Yes.
unless
Okay.
there's significant changes, but the
Okay.
intent would be.
So if you
30
have
days
any
from now.
comment, once you are able to see this and digest it, please make those online. And you're also happy to come in here to make some public comment, but we're not going to take public comment tonight on this item.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, as we discussed in work session, there's really two parts to this ordinance. So on one hand, you have the registration and permitting requirement, which essentially will require all single-family rentals, which includes townhomes, to register and be permitted to operate as a single-family rental here in Fishers. Under this ordinance, permits would not expire until the ownership of the property changes over, or unless it was revoked for violations, which we'll talk about here in a couple slides. The other piece of this is the rental permit cap, and this ordinance would essentially implement a permit cap of 10% at the subdivision level. So any units above that 10% that are applying for a permit would be denied. We did contemplate legacy rentals into this ordinance, so any rental established prior to December 31st of this year would not be subject to that 10% cap. So in other words, we're not going into neighborhoods that are already over 10% and saying you can't be rentals. Those would be sort of grandfathered in to this ordinance. In terms of a start date, we would be looking at January 1st of 2026. So this would be the date that all single-family rentals would need to be registered by, and then that date that enforcement would begin. So we'll talk a lot about that on the next slide a little bit. I did want to touch on exemptions because since we last met, we did put some additional thought into some of these exceptions. So these are detailed in the ordinance itself, but at a high level, if property owners are renting to family or legal dependents, those will be exempt from this ordinance. If a property owner is relocated for a job under certain criteria, that is also exempt under this ordinance. Similarly, if you're military and are deployed, would like to rent your property while you're gone, that is exempt as well. The last two exceptions we did add since the work session, and these include one, an undue burden clause, which essentially covers specific life events like divorce or death that would essentially prevent selling of the property or cause an undue burden to the property owner if they were, or if they did have to sell the property. And then finally, we did add language to exempt properties that have been listed for sale for 6 months or longer, but have failed to sell in that period of time. So that was an additional exemption there. So we tried to keep these exceptions pretty inclusive of situations we thought that could arise. I will say if anything is outside of these exemptions, there is an appeal process. So if a permit was denied, just like any of our permits, property owners could go through an appeal process, which is outlined in the ordinance as well. So in terms of compliance and enforcement, well, one, as we discussed in work session, the technology that we're leveraging for this is really what makes this enforcement piece possible. So that's really what allows us to see new rentals coming onto the market and see that real-time data. But from an enforcement perspective, there will be a fine schedule for noncompliance. So in this ordinance, noncompliance of registering will be a $250 fee. And then if you're operating above the 10% cap and you're not permitted, you could be subject to a $1,000 fine per this ordinance, and that could actually escalate to a fine no less than $5,000, but no more than $7,500. So this fee schedule really contemplates that situation that we discussed in work session where a property owner is already over the 10%, they're leasing to a family or a tenant. The city's not gonna be in a position where we're asking the property owner to evict that tenant or family. That property owner would be subject to a $1,000 fine, but under this ordinance, they would be able to finish out the remainder of their lease. And then if they continue to not comply, then that's where that escalation would come into play. I did want to note, just outside of registering, some additional violations include violations to the city code, more than 7 public nuisance calls, and then utility delinquency as well. So after notice of violation of these cases, owners will have the opportunity to remediate these violations. If they are not remediated, then that's where the permit revocation can come into play, and that would be done at the city court. Finally, I did just want to go over the application requirements. Really, most of this is logistical information. We didn't include a lease or insurance information or anything like that. We did require a local contact, as we discussed in work session. This has been problematic on the code enforcement side in the past and on the public safety side when we didn't have a local contact. So wanted to include that as well, but most of the application requirements are pretty straightforward. And then finally, I did just want to note, this is a little bit more related to the technology than the ordinance, but I did want to note that the technology we are utilizing will allow any prospective landlords to actually identify whether a property is available for rent and allow a temporary permit to be issued until they can complete that transaction, and then that permanent permit would be issued. So I just wanted to highlight that because that really does eliminate any barriers for prospective prospective landlords, I should say, that are interested in a rental property. Okay, and then finally, I did just want to touch on timeline. So this is tentative. Obviously, it depends on when we actually, or how we move forward with this ordinance. We did discuss if this is passed next month, the intent would be to start sending notice letters to suspected rentals and opening the registry in April. So that would really allow for an 8 to 9 month transition period prior to that go live date in January. We'd also use that time, like we discussed in work session, for education, to communicate with stakeholders, HOAs. We have our first HOA meeting, I think, in a couple weeks to communicate with HOAs as well. But again, this timeline provides plenty of runway to really communicate with all owners to get them registered by that January 1st date. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions or comments from council.
Any questions for Jordan?
I have a quick question. When you talk about military members who have been deployed, did you consider folks who have a permanent change of station? Oftentimes they might want to return to where they lived.
Yeah, are you referring to someone that is deployed? And
Active duty military, like
Okay.
if they're assigned here, and then if they have a permanent change of station, they PCS, the military sends them someplace else. Sometimes those folks want to come back to where they bought a house. So that might be something to consider. I know as a child growing up, my parents bought a house, we moved all over the world, and then that's where they came back to. So that's something to consider too. Oftentimes with military folks, you use your GI Bill benefit to buy a house, and that might be where they intend to come back to. So it's just something to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Bill?
I still have the same question I had during the work session, and this is for Lindsay and Chris. Are we still on solid ground legally to, what's our statutory authority to do the cap?
Want me to take that, or you want to take it? Yeah, so I feel confident that we're on solid ground to do it with the cap. It's a power of our home rule statute. And so you don't have anything expressly applied in Indiana law that says you can implement a cap. Conversely, you don't have anything in Indiana law that prohibits you from placing a cap. You have a statutory authority to have the permit application under the statutes that Lindsay has cited, and the cap is just an added addition to it. So I feel confident with it.
So we're just, the statute doesn't say it, so we're using our home rule authority to do it.
As we do with a lot of functions.
Understood.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Pete, I have a couple questions. The property status verification, would that be on the Fishers website so people would know to go in there and check? Or how-
Correct. It would be on the Fishers website through the software that we're utilizing, but you'll be able to type in the address. If it's over the 10%, it'll essentially stop you in your tracks and say this property is not available for rent. If it is available, you'll be able to progress with an application for a temporary permit, which will be good for 90 days. And then at that point, you would apply for a permanent permit. But that would essentially kind of hold your spot while you're closing on that property.
And you said you're going to be meeting with the HOAs, so as of now, we haven't really received any feedback from the HOAs, or how has this been received in general terms?
Yeah, we've had one-off conversations. We haven't had a conversation with all of the HOAs together, so we're planning a webinar for that in addition to talking with the HOA Alliance.
Okay, thank you.
To add on to Cecilia regarding the communication, if we were to approve this, obviously the HOA's contacted. What about just those rentals, right? Like that maybe don't get communication real well for the HOA. What's that process look like?
Are you just talking about for being notified that
Notified
you're a
that this is
suspected
going
rental?
on, that just so they know, for instance, prospective buyers, like out-of-state buyers or in-state investors, just so they know what's going on.
Yeah, so, well, we will have a process of sending notification letters. So right now I have a handful of periods on this timeline when those will go out. Ideally, that pool would get smaller and smaller as people register. But there will be a lot of communication in that 8 to 9 month period, ensuring everyone is fully aware of this change.
Council members, there's a couple different stakeholders. One are the people that currently own rental properties. We obviously want to communicate early and often with them to make sure they understand. And secondly, the realtors that are out there selling properties. We've talked to the Metropolitan Board of Realtors and gave them a draft of this ordinance, and certainly want to stay in communication with them and make sure that we're available as a resource to help educate any of the realtors that might be out there about this particular subject as well.
Yeah. We've certainly hit a hot button. People are very excited about this, as I've received overwhelming amount of responses, just unsolicited, from people watching us during this process, and so excited to see where we go with this.
We look forward over the next 30 days to continue to get feedback from all of you, as well as stakeholders, and we don't claim to have the monopoly on a good idea here. If there's ways that we can improve it, we'll certainly do that to try to affect the right outcome and bring that back to you guys at second reading and solicit more feedback and continue to work through this legislative process.
My only question is maybe more of an offline question for you, Jordan, is it's one thing to pass something as how do you implement it, how do you enforce it? I'd like to kind of gain an understanding of what that process is, what do you have to track it? How do we do it? Will we do it right? And we make sure that, but just something maybe we want to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
And also share the residents too, so they understand what this process is all about, how we're going to implement it, how we're going to be able to enforce it.
Definitely. Yeah, and a big piece of that is the technology, but I can plan on the second reading to bring some of that as well.
Be good to know. Thank you.
I think it'd be great if maybe we had an operational memo that kind of goes with the ordinance, says, here's the ordinance, here's how we operationalize it. I'm confident, Jordan's been living this for the last year and a half, so I'm confident she could rattle that off her head.
Yes,
It is
exactly.
trash, yeah.
Next one.
Any other questions or comments from council?
First reading.
Okay, John gave it a first reading. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jordan. Okay, moving on to item 15, planning and zoning. Ross Hillary.
Good evening. For the record, Ross Hillary, Planning and Zoning Director. Before you is item 14, Ordinance 022425B. This is the Garadot PUD. This is first reading. This is a rezone request for 9.15 acres from R2 to PUD-R, to be known as the Garadot PUD. It is located off of Cumberland Road. Current address is 11052 Cumberland Road. The summary of this is a 21-lot residential single-family for-sale neighborhood. This is under the suburban residential portion of the 2040 plan, which is in line with what they are proposing. The site plan can be seen here, which is most like, if you remember from a couple years ago, the Remington PUD, which is located off of East 126th Street. As mentioned, this is a 21-lot infill along Cumberland Road. The proposed timeline for you tonight is first reading. We require a neighborhood meeting for all of our rezones, so they will have that in March. We do anticipate this going in front of our PUD approval for elevations in April. Public hearing is required before Plan Commission as well as April. And then if you have first reading tonight, we would return on April 21st. I do have our friends from Pulte here tonight who would like to provide you with some more context.
That's Ross.
Rex?
Commissioner?
Good evening, Rex Ramage, Pulte Homes, 11595 North Meridian Street. I feel like Ross and I are on the same page. I think I have about 5 slides, which are almost exactly what he showed you, so I'll try not to duplicate it in too much effort. Just a little bit more zoomed out where the site's generally located. Again, east side of Cumberland Road, south of 116th Street. Went through the comprehensive plan there again, suburban residential, 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. Again, the same site plan, 21 lots on just over 9 acres. That's about 2.3 units to the acre. Here are a couple slides of what the homes could potentially look like. We try to offer about 4 to 5 different floor plans, each floor plan having 4 to 5 different elevations. That way we can avoid anti-monotony and make sure that there's a nice streetscape aesthetic and things of that nature. So the homes would range anywhere. We have a 2,300 square foot ranch. The 2 stories start at about 2,800 square feet, go up to about 3,300 square feet. We would anticipate that the average sales price of these homes would range anywhere from $500 to $650. Can certainly go higher depending on what additions and options people select and put in features that they put into their homes. So again, first reading here tonight. Happy to take any feedback, questions, comments, concerns that you all have, and then we will certainly navigate the process. One additional item that I wanted to mention is that this property is not yet annexed into the city of Fishers, so we will be doing that alongside the rezoning process. So you may or may not see that, at your next meeting. That could potentially not be with the rezoning petition. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Commissioner Broad?
What's your side setbacks going to be?
7.
7?
7 feet, yes, sir.
Okay, why not 10 for our ordinance?
We build a lot of homes, and we feel like the comments of maybe 5 or 6 feet is not enough. 10 feet may be a little bit too big. This site is uniquely shaped in that there's not a ton of space, so that is the reason that we are deviating from the...
Well, as you know, 5 is terrible, and I would like to see it 10 feet.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions for petitioner?
I have a couple comments. I get a lot of emails from residents that are looking for homes that are more accessible. They're taking care of elderly parents, or, as we age, we have medical conditions that require us to use, a wheelchair or some kind of, medical device. Would you consider having like a zero entry entryway, where 0 steps, a 0-step entry to accommodate people? And then I didn't know, like, in terms of your restroom, like the bathroom or things like that. We're getting a lot of asks, and so I thought I'd just put it out there to see if that's something that could be considered.
Sure. We have those things built into our ranch series homes. I think you might be more familiar with, the Del Webb style homes and things of that nature. We do have those options and features available. I can go ahead and look into that to see if those options, or some of them, we can cherry pick and include them here for those folks that may need them. As of today, 4 of the 5 plans are going to be 2-story homes. They don't have masters on the main or anything like that. So we would have to look at those other features to see if those would be available. Sometimes the steps and the topography of the site is going to dictate that, depending on how, if it's 1 step, 2 steps, but, is there a way that we could work around that? We can definitely take a look, and I'll be happy to report back on that the next time.
I appreciate it. Sometimes it's even like in the garage,
Sure.
Or a side door or something. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you looking into it.
We can take a
Thanks.
look.
Any other questions?
I'm so sorry, what were your comments about main floor masters with the floor plans you've selected?
Yeah, so of the 5 floor plans that I anticipate that we would offer here, 1 of them is a ranch plan.
Okay.
The other 4 are 2-story homes. None of those 4 floor plans do not have a master on the main, on the
Okay.
1st floor. So they would all be on the 2nd floor.
Yeah. I
So
think
was
that,
just trying
I think to piggyback on what Cecilia said, I would say that that's the number 1 thing that we get asked for, are main floor masters.
Main floor masters.
Yeah. So something to consider.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll
I
entertain
have
the
one
first reading.
question. One question.
Sure, John.
Becky, it's probably more question. What is Cumberland Road? Are we going to be allowed left-hand turns out of here with the updating of Cumberland Road?
That it was kind of reviewed with our staff on the new plan that's coming in for Cumberland Road. But yeah, we'll review it and see if there's a left turn lane.
Because you got the neighbor other side there. It's coming together, so you've got some
Correct, yeah. So
efficiency there.
we lined it up with the Valley Springs Boulevard just on the
Okay.
western side of the road. We did have a conversation with staff, and
Okay.
we're working through some of those design items right now. We know that the Cumberland Road improvements and the cross-section is going to change a little bit. We're happy to help facilitate as much of that as we can, with our development within the limits that we have, so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else? Entertain the first reading.
First reading?
John gives it a first reading. Thanks, Rex.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to item 16.
Good evening. For the record again, item 16, I'm sorry, I have that mislabeled, is a consideration of a rezone of 5.66 acres from R2 to estate residential for a single-family residence at the common address of 16601 Southeastern Parkway. Summary of this is we have a new 5-lot subdivision. Part of that is rezoning this lot to be consistent with those. You can see here we have a new lot 1, lot 2, 3, 4, and 5. The area is zoned for lot 2, 3, 4, and 5. As you can see, north of there is estate residential, and this property would like to be the same estate residential as well. This does meet our state residential requirements of 1 acre or more. I'm happy to answer any questions on this one. Staff is not requiring a neighborhood meeting on this. We will have a public hearing at Plan Commission on March 5th. And then if you have first reading tonight, we would come back March 17th for final reading.
Any questions for Ross? Seeing none, I'll entertain a first reading. John gives it a first reading. 17, Ross?
Yes, 022425D. This is our annual update of the 2040 plan. I'm happy to come back every year to discuss this. The comprehensive plan was adopted in 2016, and we had our first state-required update in 2021. The 2040 plan is broken up into 4 main chapters, as you can see here: land use, housing and neighborhoods, transportation, and parks. And in 2021, we added an implementation chapter to provide you with those annual updates. It's a really fun read if you guys would like to go through it, but I'd like to summarize it tonight, is that our implementation chapter is broken down into action statuses. We have 200 plus action items in our comprehensive plan, and those action statuses provide you with a guideline of where they are in that process. So we have items that are underway, future, which are not started, items that are completed, and then items that we consider maintenance, which means they're an ongoing basis, like repairing the roads. We can never complete that task, so it's ongoing. 32 of those action items are underway, 14 of those action items are complete, and 12% of those action items are future. Our transportation chapter houses our thoroughfare map, which is also updated annually. You can see here in a better picture on the agenda. These updates are made annually to reflect changes in our transportation funding, any annexations that we have, coordinations with Hamilton County, and our city growth pattern. Improvements that are shown here that I wanted to highlight includes updates to Oldia Road in response to Hamilton County, as well as improvements that we've seen down on 96th Street between I-69 and Lantern. As always, I request residents to head over to fishersIN.gov/2040. You can see everything that we have there for residents to review. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ross? Seeing none, I'll entertain a first reading.
Just a quick, I'm sorry, just a quick question.
Okay,
Or
jump in
not
quickly,
question, just more of a
Tom.
statement. Just, I continue to get comments, suggestions, and I tell them the situation where we have unincorporated areas where we cannot connect trail systems and sidewalks, so I continue to explain that. But just as we progress, that is something that's on top of mind for a lot of residents about being able to connect. They really love what we're doing with Nickel Plate Trail, and so it's not necessarily a complaint other than a question as we continue to educate the public just on that we are trying to get there, and part of that 2040 plan is, so I just wanted to kind of share that publicly. We're trying to get there, but there are what we call Swiss cheese effect. There's the unincorporated areas that we simply don't have the land to be able, we don't have the access and the authority to build trails along there, but we're working toward that, so.
Absolutely, and the only comment I'd like to add on that, Hatem and I work great together in finding ways to be creative on some of those trail gaps. One of those things earlier last year was introducing our trail gap map, showing where those are and what projects we're working on. Even if we add 500 feet here and there, that adds up really quickly to connect our residents. So.
And even as we talk about these new subdivisions or whatever we're, or incorporating some areas that we are adding sidewalks and trails as we go along there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a first reading, rather. All right, Todd gave it a first reading. Item number 18, consider text amendment to the UDO.
Yes, 022425E, Ross Hillary, Planning and Zoning Director. For the record, This is a consideration of a text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance. For the record, this is for Chapter 1, 3, 5, and 12. There's a lot of information there for you guys to digest. We actually anticipate coming back next month with Chapter 6 and 8. This is a year-long plus work that we've been working on with our team. I want to summarize those changes before you on the agenda. We did provide you with a redlined document so you can see what changed. So in Chapter 1, we are relocating some of our development standards from Chapter 1 to Chapter 6, which, as I said, we will bring forward next month. Chapter 3, you will see a reduction in the front yard setback for R1 to R5, which matches the last decade of development patterns. Parcels adjacent to Geist will have a higher impervious surface allowed on their property. This is a reaction to BZA cases for the past decade as well. In Chapter 5, which is our use regulations, we are adding accessory and temporary uses to the use table. These were previously located throughout the UDO. Expanded the definition of senior living to senior living assisted, independent, and nursing to better reflect development patterns as well. We've added EV charging stations as an accessory use, as well as solar and wind energy. These are standards that we've usually had to react to when they come forward to us. The last one I can remember was working with HSC schools on installing solar on their property. We had to get creative in how that was because we didn't have standards to work through. We are removing vehicle fuel sales from C2 and C3 commercial. We are also removing car washes from C3 commercial. Both of those would still be allowed by right in I-1. And lastly, in Chapter 12, that's our definitions chapter. You can see here definitions help our staff with developers and residents alike. So we have added 56 new definitions. We've edited 19 and removed 12. Like I said, a lot of information there for you guys to digest. We do plan to come back next month with additional chapters and then final reading of this in April. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ross? I'll entertain a first reading. John gave it a first reading. Thank you, Ross. Okay, and item 19, any unfinished or new business? No. Okay, we're going to open it up for community comment. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes in which to speak. Mr. Colby.
Good evening, Council. Been a while.
Good to see you.
Just
We missed you, Mike.
A rhetorical question. Are you missing that Michigan left yet? You know, I was on the council with a few of you guys, and we put that together. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Maybe it's time to look at it again. Anyway, I want to give a couple of attaboys. I sat next to a couple of firemen that came out to my house on the 7th of February. My wife had a wrestling match with one of those 95-gallon trash cans. It slid down the driveway. She fell and put a pretty good-sized wound on her head, requiring her being transported to Community North. I want to give the attaboy to the fire department and to the city's, the group that handles, I guess they're in utilities, because I called the waste management and I talked to operations 3 times, sales 4 times, and the operator 6 times, and I was not able to get the smaller trash cans. So I went to the city and gave them my plight. They got involved. In 2 days, the problem was corrected. So I appreciate that. I have a question. I know I'll try to be back for next month's meeting on the rental restrictions. We went through our covenants a few years back, and we have some different standards in that we limit our total to 3 homes in our community. That would be less than the 10%. So would we be able to enforce our rules or not?
You can be more restrictive, you just can't be less restrictive.
We can be more restrictive, okay, because we are.
Yep.
I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And just to make sure we get clarity there, Mike, there's no one sitting here at council who approved that Michigan left. That's one of the things I tell everybody. That was done before John and I got on council. Okay, so anyways, just FYI.
I thought it was you guys were around.
We were close, but
Yes,
We were
yes.
close.
David George pulled that together, and like I say, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
I don't see him here.
And looking at the 96th Street roundabout down there, maybe time to bring it back.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Chris Neal and live at 10623 Cedar Drive. I'm the president of Sand Creek Woods and I'm down the road here. Got about 188 residents. I used to be on the city council in Hartford City for about 4 years. And the biggest frustration I have are probably what you always hear, parking on the streets and people not really honoring the codes. And if there's anything that we could do in the future to consider ways to slow people down and have better parking regulations, I think it would really help the community as a whole. The second concern is snow removal. We had a bigger snow than I think anybody really predicted. I think in the course of about 8 days, there was like 14 inches of snow. And it's a little frustrating where I lived in Hartford City, the city took care of all the streets, okay? And they did an excellent job. I understand the HOA has to take on some of this. And so I would just really request in your future budgets, you put more money in snow removal, and maybe it be salting and other things. I know it's a lot of money, and you never know if you're going to use it. If you don't use it, buy more equipment, get better equipment. I've talked to some of your people that they do a great job, but they need more help. So, third thing is I want to commend whoever was involved. I think you're doing a great job. The trash thing was a great thing. We had a private contract. It worked out. Great transition. Thank you, everybody involved with that. You did a fantastic job. Overall, you're doing a fantastic job. I love living here. I'm proud to be part of Fishers City. My only request in the future is, as all the HOAs I'm seeing, you should put money in your budget to really encourage them all to require reserve. It's too expensive for the average HOA to be able to get a real accurate reserve of where they stand. And they cost anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. So if you guys can sort of figure that out in the future, we as leaders and volunteers, we're self-managed volunteers, could do a much better job if we know what it's going to cost and what's required to do it right. So thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, Ross Reinhardt, 7704 Creekside Court. Hello again. I just wanted to come share some things I'm excited about, honestly. I just came for the open house out here, the Safe Streets and Trails, and it's really cool to hear some of the ideas put forth there and how they're aiming for 0 injuries and deaths, and through a systemic approach, bringing together different things that we can control to try to get there. So really excited about that, excited to see the progress. And the 2040 plan, I got a chance to read through some of the changes and additions there. Just a lot of things I was excited about. One was, it was mentioning changing road design to slow speed, talking about a systemic approach. That's one lever we can pull on to be able to create safer spaces. There was stuff in there about pedestrian connectivity and looking into pedestrian connectivity at the 116th and 69 crossover there. Really excited about that as well. It talked about raised crosswalks and bump outs, which is something that we've seen success with already here in Fishers, which is really exciting to see. I'd love to see more of that, and east and west connections to Nickel Plate. So all of those things were things I was really excited about. I just cherry-picked a few of them. Yeah, so wanted to share that I was excited about those things. I'd love to see more kind of, to help enhance the walkability and being able to get around, something in there that would, about public transit and how we could start to utilize some of that to sort of extend these trips and where you can get on foot. It's something, another thing that has been working out really great with the Kroger moving closer to our neighborhood. I've been running into a lot of neighbors that are just really excited about being able to walk, have that proximity to different services and being able to walk over, go to the grocery store. We have a couple neighbors that for various reasons no longer can drive a car that have found ways to have mobility to be able to get to the grocery store or get to Goodwill to buy clothes. So and my spouse as well, she loves now being able to walk over and get groceries at, multiple times a week. You don't even have to plan ahead as much. So having that proximity to services, in addition to sort of the changes to the design of the roads, is something that just wanted to share excitement about as well. That's just been a really positive thing in our life. So it's been really cool to see the changes in Fishers over the time that we've lived here. It's come a long way, and want to share excitement about those things and keep up that momentum. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening, Council. Jocelyn Vare, 12315 Windsor East Drive. Had a question or request this evening about the 10% rental cap proposed ordinance. And that is, I didn't see on Jordan's information the opportunity for a town hall before the council has their final vote. I am requesting you consider hosting a town hall. Certainly the 10% rental cap proposal is novel. It impacts property rights and has big implications. So that is my request this evening, if you would consider hosting a town hall.
We don't give answers, Jocelyn, as you know. We'll take it under advisement.
Okay, when would we know if you elect to do that? Like, how would that?
I would assume you're going to hear something by the next agenda.
Which would be, at the next agenda, that would be the meeting that you would vote on it, though.
And again, so we don't know when it's being brought back yet. I asked that question when we were introducing it. I think the intent is to bring it back next month, but it could be pushed off till April. So we'll go ahead and give proper consideration to having a town hall.
Well, I appreciate that consideration, and since I have a moment left, town hall, my request specifically, since you're considering it, is a town hall, like a traditional town hall with microphones, instead of a virtual town hall or a information session set up like a science fair. So I just want to be clear on what specifically I'm requesting. So thanks for that consideration tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Todd, second by John. We are adjourned.
I'm not here.